who rules at the end of the day depends on who has a stronger altar. So what is it that determines the strength of an altar?
Correct.
You have to have a priest or somebody who is determined. In other words, the priest is the individual who engages the altar. So you have to be present to engage the altar.
Yeah.
That's what the Bible says. All of us are priests.
Yeah.
In the New Testament.
Yes.
In the Old Testament, it was the Aaronic priesthood. But in the New Testament, all of us are priests. So for there to be strength on an altar, you have to be there.
Yeah.
There has to be, every altar needs a priest.
Thank you.
Wow.
But now in the New Testament, God turns everything around and says, now you know what? Everyone that is born again, by the way, I've given you the same access. You have the same access to me. You don't need another priest. You are the priest.
You are the priest.
So if you don't show up, if you yourself don't show up, where is your priest? Who is your priest? Pastor Jemo is my pastor. You know, he's our priest. You know, wait, you are also a priest.
Yes.
So if you don't have an altar, if you yourself don't have communion, an appointment of communion with God, because you don't have an altar, what are we talking about?
What? How is your life?
How is your life?
We say Jesus is all we need, and Jesus is actually all that we need. But how we interact with Him,
Yes.
is important. So, John, are you saying that I could be born again, but because I have neglected my personal altar, which is my place of communion with God, then I am weak? And there's somebody else who may be invoking Sidimoni, Amanya Sidimoni. Yeah? And it's almost like they have dominance over me, and yet I'm born again. Is that what we are saying? And if the answer is yes, how?
Hi, and welcome back to Your Faith Speaks, where we have been tackling the conversation on altars and how prayer relates to that. Last time, I think we left off the conversation somewhere around, evil altars and godly altars, and, the significance of the godly ones on the people of Israel. And I believe today we will be moving that conversation ahead into, maybe the New Testament, trying to see, okay, are these things even significant for us now?
Yeah.
Yesu alikuja, he died for us, blood was shed, and see, we are good. What more do we need now?
In fact, he said it is finished.
Exactly. So we should be fine. And again, on set, I'm joined by Pastor James and Evangelist John Magangi. Truly honored to have them with us to help us break down this thing. So karibuni sana, guys.
Thank you. Yeah. I think maybe you could begin us off by that definition. I think that definition should carry us through every episode, because that definition is very important. So before we start comparing evil altars and godly altars, define for us again, give us that definition of an altar and its purpose.
Yes, so an altar is a place of interaction between the natural realm and the spiritual realm. It's the interface, is where there is that interface between the natural realm and the spiritual realm. And I think one of the key things that is good to always bear in mind is that these two realms are different in nature. The spiritual realm clearly is inhabited by spirit beings, God being the most awesome spirit being. God is a spirit. John 4:24 says, they that worship God must worship Him in
spirit and truth.
It says, it begins by saying God is spirit, and therefore they that worship Him must worship Him in spirit and truth. So that's the spirit being, and the spiritual realm is inhabited by spirits. The natural realm is inhabited by human beings, natural. And so for the human to interact with the spiritual, there is a need for an interface that facilitates that interaction, and that's the altar.
Okay. Wow. And you talked about communing.
Yes. It's a place of communing. Yes, it's a place of communing with the spirit being. So that's where the natural human being communes to the spirit being, through that interface. I think that's pretty much.
That's pretty much it. Okay. the last episode, we had begun a conversation about, comparing the two, because as I was saying in the previous episode, the children of Israel are now here. They are entering into the land of promise. God has instituted this whole issue of altars and how it's supposed to be done, but they're surrounded with other nations who also have altars.
Yes.
So what's the difference between these two?
And the impact that
yes.
So there are there's these two what shall we call them, parallel systems. There's a system of God. It's an altar system, but there are different actors here.
Yeah,
we have the children of Israel, we have the holy God, and they have a system of they have an altar system.
Yeah,
so there's a sacrifice system there. And on this other side, we have children who are not people who are not in covenant with God, but they have other entities that they are interacting with in the spiritual realm as well.
Yes.
So, for example, when you go to Canaan, you find there are many gods. You find Baal, one of the key entities there. Baal is there. Ashtoreth is there.
Yeah.
You'll find another one called Chemosh. There are other entities. You'll find Dagon.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are other entities in this area that are also gods, which the people there have built altars unto. So we have two systems. So there's let's, for the sake of Baal, was like the chief god there. So it's just there's the Baal system.
Yes.
And then there's the Jehovah system.
Yes.
Now, these are two different systems. However, they are systems that are supposed to achieve the same purpose, which is to cause men to interact with the spiritual realm. So the altar system for the Baal system is to provide altars of Baal that allow Baal to interact with his adherents.
Okay.
Can I throw in a question there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why is it necessary for man to invoke spiritual beings and to interact with them? Why? Whether it is Baal or the one true God?
Yeah.
Why the need?
That's so awesome. Because the truth is, at the end of the day, actually, who are we? We are spirit beings. We dwell in a body, but we're not the body. We've never been the body. In fact, the body gives a spirit locale, gives a spirit a location. So this is your address.
Oh.
Yeah. Like if you go to, like when you go to various neighborhoods, there's different designs, different architecture, whatever.
Yes.
So this is Buru, this is
Ololo.
There's different neighborhoods.
Yes.
And you can tell, you can tell if you know a particular neighborhood, if you know a particular house, you can tell that is so-and-so's house.
Yeah.
That is so-and-so's house. So our physical beings are simply houses. They look a certain way, they appear a certain way, they sound a certain way. It's just an address. But the real us well in there.
Wow.
But we are spirit beings. So there's, whether you like it or not, whether you suffocate it or not, your spirit man will yearn for an interaction with another spirit being.
Yes.
That's just who we are. That's why people worship something. Even atheists worship nothing, because the something is called nothing. They have to associate with this idea, with this thing. There has to be something. It's an innate craving. The spirit man, our spirit man longs for spiritual interaction. So we are created.
Wow.
Look, and I love this. I heard this from the late Miles Monroe. Oh, he made so much sense. He made so much sense. Because you're saying, look at the pattern of creation. Just look at the pattern of creation. Go back to Genesis 1, go back to Genesis 2. Read that. What do you discover? You'll discover that when God said, let there be fish, he put them in the water. First he created the water, then he said, let fish come forth. God said, let the dry land appear, and then he caused plants to come out. He said, the firmament. He first of all separated the waters from the waters, created the firmament. Later on day 5, then he says, then the birds appear. So God creates the environment first. And then he creates the entity that is doing occupants. So then he said, now, if you think about it, if you look at how everything else runs from there, that which is created to live in a certain environment. You take that thing away, or you disconnect it from its environment,
it dies. It dies.
So if you take a fish out of water, what happens?
It dies.
If you take a plant out of the ground,
it dies.
It dies. If you try to put a bird in the water, because after it is also somewhere to be.
It
dies.
It dies.
So,
oh man,
where did man come from? Man was made by God. The natural habitat.
God made the house first.
The natural habitat for man is God.
Wow.
So, if you disconnect man from God, what happens?
Death.
Man dies. So that's why if you put a fish, if you get a fish out of, if you put a fish over here, it'll be flapping, looking for water. It's like, oh my goodness, I hope I can flap hard enough to where I get a pool of water or something. I'm suffocating. Please help me, somebody. So a lot of times we want the life of God. Our spirit man knows there's something that there's a way that I know there's something that I want to be reconnected back to where is it? Where? And you're searching. So people are searching all the time.
I'm just wondering, I don't know what you think about this faith, because when I think about evil altars, most of what happens there is transactional. In that, I want wealth. I want to win the election. I want to have property. I want this. And then, okay, if that's what you want, you have to bring a sacrifice of this. Somebody from your family has to die on all these things. And then when that happens, then eventually you end up getting those things, but at a very high cost. So I'm just wondering, could it be then also that we need to recognize that life in this realm that we see is affected and, in a sense, dictated by the spiritual realm that we don't see? And that's why we always need to connect with it, because it determines what's happening here.
Yeah. I mean, I say absolutely. Coming into the knowledge, I think that we're sharing right now. And I think even, further to that, what you just talked about, when you say people who service or, who use evil altars to get what they want, I think the true question there is then the giver who wants to give you all those things, and that's the thing. I'm like, the enemy is so smart at twisting things, because the true source of all these things is truly God.
Yes.
And God is a father and a loving father, like we stated in the first episode. His desire is to bless us with all this. He's not holding back. He's not holding anything back.
Very true.
But then we end up at this space where we are like, I'd rather sacrifice whatever it is I'm sacrificing at the evil altar. It's like a shortcut.
It is a shortcut.
It's a shortcut.
Yeah.
But really, at the end of the day, it takes away from you more than it gives back.
Yeah.
The end game is the enemy is not here to make you happy. Yeah, and he's not here for you to succeed and and flourish and thrive.
And the enemy never gives you anything for free.
Exactly.
Yes.
There's such a high cost to it.
Wow.
So for me, I don't know what it is about us. I think again it's the lack of understanding. We to just come to this place of communion. Spend time with the Father. Our relationship is not supposed to be we are servicing so that He can give us. But just remember, like my children don't need to come and do a million things for me to make me want to do something.
No.
Naturally, exactly.
It's very unnatural.
Exactly.
It's like, what are you doing?
That's it. So I think we need to come back to the place of understanding the genesis of this God and how we see Him.
Yeah.
How we view Him.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a father, as somebody who is, desiring for us to have it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And yet wanting to commune with us. So I don't know how what can help us.
I want to comment on what you just said. That is so foundational, so powerful. because it is the truth. The spiritual realm determines what happens in the natural realm. Therefore, even interaction with it, is important then, because then you want to be an active player in what's happening.
Yeah.
So that interaction is important. However, see, the enemy is always a counterfeiter. So he will teach or create an approach that says, "Hey, I'll give you things, I'll give you stuff," so that you think that the reason you need altars is to get stuff.
Is to get things. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one.
God's thing is no. It's not about stuff.
It's about a relationship.
Because why? Now you're asking me for stuff. Who are you asking for stuff? You want to tell me the maker of 142 billion stars?
Wow.
You need to tell him that, by the way, I need Saguni Lisha and I need
na pia gas.
Yeah.
Mwambie pia gas.
It doesn't make sense. It actually means we don't understand. Because you think about it. God creates Adam and Eve and he gives them the whole earth just as one, just and this is, by the way, filter. It's okay. Okay, here's the question. Yeah, again, back into that.
Yes.
So what prayer items did Adam and Eve have? If our prayer time, our communion time with God is to ask for things, and God already was having these kinds of times with Adam and Eve
before the fall.
So before the fall, what were they asking? Father, we ask for, we need another elephant to eat. It's not about stuff.
Yeah.
This whole, you see the brokenness of the broken glass through which we are looking has discolored everything. So and then the enemy is very good at propaganda and spreading his version of what altars are for.
Yeah.
To where now, even those of us who are born again, we are infected with the virus of what the altars are supposed to do. So we have an altar to get something.
Yes.
Because
that altar is very powerful.
Yes. And then we keep telling each other, oh, you want to go to this other altar.
In fact, now that you've brought in that conversation, I want to flip. Najua hata ukipika mayai lazima uinini.
Ive vizuri.
New Testament, because we are living in the New Testament dispensation. Do altars, as we have understood them in the Old Testament, have a place in the New Testament? Old Testament altars were physical things that were built.
Yeah.
But what about in the New Testament? Because we have a lot of talk about altars, mantles, spiritual realm, what. And sometimes it gets confusing.
Oh, yeah.
So, do we need altars?
Well, again, going back to the initial appreciation of what an altar is. It's a place or a time of communing with, the spirit being in the realm of the spirit that we have a relationship with, which is God for us. So that's the purpose of it. So the truth is, we will never stop needing a time and a place to commune with God.
True.
Even in the New Testament.
So
the purpose that an altar serves will never stop being, we'll never need, we'll never stop needing that.
As long as we're in this physical realm.
Because we always want to interact, we always need to come to a place of communion with God. Those formal times, those, interactions, that all will always continue. So that means, technically, we always have altars. Now, like what you shared earlier, in the Old Testament, these were physical places. This were literally physical places. And I think it's good to appreciate the fact that, when you look at the Old Testament, God was giving us a foreshadowing of what was in his heart, the intent of God. So God establishes a covenant with Israel to be a prototype of what he will do with the rest of the world. So he introduces the covenant with Moses and the priestly system to show us that when Jesus comes, who is like the Moses for everybody, when he comes, there will be, this is how we'll be interacting. That's why we are a kingdom of priests unto God. Revelation 1:6 talks about how we are kings and priests unto our God. So everybody is born again immediately there's two offices. You are a king, you're a priest. So, but as a priest, you need to function, you need to understand how priesthood works. So God gives us an example, and a prototype, and a teaching, and a lesson in the Old Testament. This is how it works. So be able to learn and take the truths, not necessarily to replicate the physical structures, but to appreciate the truth of what was going on here. So yes, in the New Testament we have, altar activity, and we could say, if, for example, you have a set time that you spend with God, that you come to interact with God, that becomes your altar. If you have even when you talk about a place, for example, if you're talking about in a broad sense, when you're talking about like, for example, a local church which you attend, and it's a place where you commune with God, it's a place for worship and interaction, that's an altar to you in that sense. But there's a weird understanding also of the local church is an altar. There's also another extreme over there. But if you appreciate the meaning, it's a place of communing with God. Do you commune with God when you gather together with other believers in the church?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. So then it becomes our corporate altar, where we now come together as believers of this particular congregation. We come here, we commune with our God in a corporate sense, but I do have a time when I commune with God in a personal sense, in my house, in my home, in my place, whatever. So I have an altar there. So are altars relevant in the New Testament? Absolutely. Absolutely. So now, but there's something you mentioned earlier about, how did the evil realm, the evil altars and the other altars, how do they compare, and what how do they, what's the difference between them? And especially like when we're talking about in the last episode about how does having an altar impact your life? Now, when you compare, we're talking about this system, the Jehovah system and the Baal system. Now, they are both systems that are altar systems that are meant to give that interaction in the realm of the spirit. Now, but remember, they are all their goal is interaction and transaction, if you use that word, with the realm of the spirit. Now, what then determines what happens? There are certain laws now that determine the strength of an altar, because what governs who takes over is dependent on the strength of the altar. I always say you could really reduce all spiritual warfare into a battle between altars. Because you see, warfare, an evil spirit is trying to do whatever, but the Lord is on this side and born again and whatever. So when we are warfaring, it's really it's a battle between how we interact with God and how the enemy interacts with his people. So now, the things that determine the strength of an altar, who rules at the end of the day, depends on who has a stronger altar. So what is it that determines the strength of an altar? Now, number one, you have to have a priest or somebody who is determined. In other words, the priest is the individual who engages the altar. So you have to be present to engage the altar. That's what the Bible says. All of us are priests in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, it was the Aaronic priesthood. But in the New Testament, all of us are priests. So for there to be strength on an altar, you have to be there.
There has to be. Every altar needs a priest.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. You have to, there has to be a priest. Now, in the Old Testament, people learned to delegate the responsibility of stewarding the altar to the priest. And that was the system there. So, both on the Lord's side, on the other system side. But now in the New Testament, God turns everything around and says, now, you know what? Everyone that is born again, by the way, I've given you the same access. You have the same access to me. You don't need another priest. You are the priest.
You are the priest.
So if you don't show up, if you yourself don't show up, where is your priest? Who is your priest? Pastor Jemo is my pastor. He's our priest. Wait. You are also a priest. So if you don't, if you don't have an altar, if you yourself don't have communion, an appointment of communion with God, because you don't have an altar. What are we talking about?
What? How is your life?
How is your life? You will be ruled by the other realm. Because let me tell you what, this other realm, this Baal realm. Hey, okay, let me ask you a question. Do you know how, have you seen how all these people who were either involved in witchcraft or whatever, when they come back and now connect with the Lord Jesus Christ, they will tell you there's nothing like mercy.
Yeah.
There's nothing like, so it's about today, today you're tired. Because there, it is not a matter of what you feel. You will do. This is a duty. This is a duty. Because if you don't, you're weakening the altar.
Yes.
Wow.
So you are required. It is not whether you feel like it or feelings put there.
Feelings are here.
Work put here. Why? Because a priest must perform the duty of a priest. The interaction with the realm of the spirit must continue. That's what determines the strength of an altar. Number one is the priest.
So, because we say Jesus is all we need, and Jesus is actually all that we need. But how we interact with him, is important. So, John, are you saying that I could be born again, but because I have neglected my personal altar, which is my place of communion with God, then I am weak? And there's somebody else who may be invoking tsidimoni. Wamanya tsidimoni. Yeah? And it's almost like they have dominance over me, and yet I'm born again. Is that what we are saying? And if the answer is yes, how? I thought the blood of Jesus.
Yes.
I think we can take the next conversation because I know our time is kind of wrapping up.
Yeah.
But the truth is, John 6:48, Jesus said, I am the bread of life.
Yes.
So if I'm not communing with him, how am I eating the bread of life? When I interact with God, it's not for stuff, it's for life.
Ooh.
When you interact with the table at the dinner time, is it for stuff?
No.
You need life.
It's sustenance.
It's sustenance. Thank you.
My God.
So now when you're communing with God, there is a lot more that communion involves. Pastor Jemo, if we say, let's go to Mombasa, okay, let's go by the SGR. Okay, fine. We'll meet in Nairobi. Are you telling me we'll go into the SGR? You take your seat, I take my seat. So we're going to Mombasa. So, Pastor, you've arrived.
Asan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Hampani Voi.
Are we there yet?
This is Voi. Is that
no?
We'll interact.
Yes.
We'll solve the world's problems.
I'm telling you.
I'm saying,
yes.
There's so much, and in the course of our interaction, I'm hearing, I'm learning. I'm saying, oh, really? I didn't know you had, started that venture. Because of we are communing, we are sharing, we are fellowshipping. I'm hearing you, you're hearing my heart, we're interacting, you're helping me to see something from a different perspective. I never saw this from that side. Oh, really? Oh, wow. Really? Oh, I didn't even know that guy ever existed. So the enrichment of this fellowship. We are going to Mombasa. But my goodness, what we got out of this trip is not just sightseeing and things and pictures in Mombasa.
Wow.
We were so enriched in our communion and conversation. This is the whole idea. God said, just come. Let's interact. There's so much. How much do you think I have in my heart that I can tell you? There's a man of God. I used to say this. He used to say, I'm willing to exchange everything I know for what I don't know. What I don't know is what I know is just like
a drop in the ocean.
There's so much more that I need to know. And that's why it is so important to show up. Show up in disappointment with God. It's not for stuff. It's for you. It's for me. It's for sustenance. It's for interaction. It's for feeding our spirit.
Oh my goodness.
Jesus is the bread of life. We feed on him. Even if to talk about the communion table that we say formally, he said, "This is my body. This is my blood." He established that the whole idea is, he feeds our spirit. He sustains us. So when you go a month, a week, no interaction with God, you just go and you watch TV, you watch YouTube.
As they say, 1 week without prayer makes 1 week. Wow. I have a question, but if I ask it, we'll take another 50 minutes to discuss it. And so I think we need to land this plane. But I will ask that question in the next episode. So you can't miss the next episode because it's more in line with how we understand altars today. Just a snippet. When we talk about altars today, we've gone back to things. Yeah. So this pulpit is my altar. Ukiombewa hapa utapona. Ukiombewa hapa utaolewa. Huku ukiombewa, my friend, utapata gari. It's not about a relationship anymore. It's about things. So hiyo swali nitauliza on the next
episode.
Yeah, next week on Your Faith Speaks. Coming up.
Tune in. Yeah. So there you have it. My goodness, this conversation is amazing. If you didn't watch episode 1 and you're on this one, please go back and make sure you watch episode 1. Tune in for the next one because it's getting super interesting. And there's a lot more to be unearthed and uncovered. God bless you. We love you guys. Goodbye.